from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, and that's Valdez with an S, by the way, and happy to be here with you. Tuesday night edition of the program, and there's a few things that are going on, right? So Joe Biden was in Hawaii. He was saying all sorts of crazy things. He's all over the place, actually, doing what he does, and he was met with some criticism. But first, I want you to hear what he said, because, again, you know, I've been critical of Joe El Baboso Biden, as I like to call him here, and I want him to succeed, in particular on the economy, right? If Joe Biden succeeds, we all succeed in that respect. But when it's time to be empathetic with people, I feel like you just got to be sincere. And maybe this is his attempt at sincere, and maybe it's just my bias that I just say, man, I can't stand the way he communicates these ideas. But a small kitchen fire that you had in your house is nothing compared to these tornado-like fireballs destroying an entire city that killed over 100 people. It's just, to me, it's unthinkable, and I feel like he's incredibly tone deaf. But I want you to hear what President Biden had to say when he was at the Community Engagement Center with residents impacted by the Maui wildfires in Lahaina. This was yesterday, and it just is really, again, just a sad case of being tone deaf at the very best. Listen to this.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake that's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat. But all kidding aside, I watched the firefighters, the way they responded. You know, there's an old expression. I grew up right across the street from a fire hall in Claymont, Delaware. And the expression is, God made man, then he made a few firefighters. You're all crazy, thank God. The only people who run into flames to help other people. And they ran into flames to save my wife and save my family. Not a joke.
Not a joke. Not a joke. No, it's a Joe. It's a Joe El Baboso Biden is what it is. It's a babosada. And that's just a bunch of drivel. Anyway, Joe El Baboso Biden was met with criticism, not just from me and from you guys, the listeners of this great show, and it's great because of you, not because of me, but he was met with criticism from residents in Maui that said, you know, similar to what I'm saying, that this is, it's fake, it's phony, and it's fraud. Listen to this victim of the Maui wildfire, the Lahaina resident, saying he doesn't like what Biden said because there is no better community anymore. Check this out.
And then, you know, as far as building a better community or better homes than what we have, I unfortunately didn't like that because like for our Kupuna and the Lahaina family and for a lot of people that had lost what they had lost, there's no replacing that. There's no better. There's no new. There's no better than that, you know. And, you know, forgive me if I might have misunderstood him, but, yeah, that didn't sit very well with my heart when he said that, yeah.
And that's putting it generously. But, again, Maui residents, folks in Lahaina, they're not happy. I think so many Americans are not happy. And I think this is why you see such an attack on the Republicans. You know, in years past, the attack on Republicans didn't usually come this early, right? I mean, we don't even have a Republican nominee, while Trump is head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd. And Some are out there saying he's not. And look, he is right now. It's the end of August, close to the end of August. Things kick into gear, I'd say, after Labor Day when people are back from vacation and they could start hitting the campaign trail pretty hard. But this attack that we see from the Democrats is really just, I just haven't seen anything like this, honestly. It seems to get worse and worse. You've got the Georgia people all over television saying that, this was a criminal enterprise, that when Trump, again, listen, as a candidate for any office, you run for dog catcher, school board, or whatever, if you want to contest the results of your election, there's criteria for it, and you can. And you're allowed to pick up the phone and say, hey, listen, I don't like what happened. You need to fix this. And in effect, this is what Trump did, saying, look, you need to find the 11,000 votes. This, to me, is not a threat. It's not anything. He's just saying, look, here's what you need to do. How they take it is how they take it. But the way the Democrats are painting it, Jack Smith and the feds, but even Georgia Democrats are out there on TV every day as surrogates up for the Democrat Party, saying that Trump ran a vast criminal enterprise, and they're using this state-styled RICO statute to try and prosecute him. To me, it's just unfathomable to think that this is somebody that's running for president. And I know there are people out there saying, listen, take it easy, Rich. You're missing the big point here. You're missing the message. Well, what is the message? They think that Trump ran solely to protect himself, to be immune from prosecution. Because if he ran, then they wouldn't come after him. But the problem is they had plenty of time to bring these cases. In fact, the first case they brought with DA Alvin Bragg in New York, we all know, this was past the statute of limitations. So it's not like they didn't have their chance, right? I'll never forget, and I talk about this all the time, but it really is something that bothers me. They always say the walls are closing in, the walls are closing in. They're going to take Trump on his last day in the White House. They're going to take him out in handcuffs. Now, I get the hyperbole. I get the hype. I totally understand it. But what I don't get is, why didn't it really happen? Why didn't they wait for him to get to Mar-a-Lago when he left on Marine One on his final day in the White House and lock him up then? Well, Rich, these investigations take time, and this is when the facts figured out. No, BS, Bravo Sierra, not happening. I'm not buying it. They had their chance. They've been saying they were indicting him since he was a candidate in 2016, right? Whether it was Russian collusion or whatever. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I just think, man, this is absolutely crazy. So now Georgia Republicans are working on a plan to sanction the rogue prosecutor, Fani Willis, who's pushing this fake phony fraud case, knowing that it's going to eventually get overturned because it just doesn't withstand the legal merit. And we've talked to a bunch of former federal prosecutors, judges, law professors about this. The whole thing isn't solid. But there's a commission that they're putting together, right? Georgia lawmakers are now working on ways to sanction Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. She's the prosecutor that I mentioned who brought the criminal charges against former President Trump and 18 co-defendants who, by the way, are turning themselves in as we speak. And tomorrow's the big day where Trump goes. Some are saying Trump should not post bail. I say he should. But those that say he don't, let them lock him up. Get the video that they want because, that might actually help him clinch the nomination. I don't know. All I can say is I think Americans across the country, those that listen to this program and elsewhere, they know the real deal. Real hardworking people that are out there in the streets. And we're going to talk with somebody who is a country singer of sorts, right, in his own right. Started out trying to be a country singer and an actor and a model, and has an amazing story of how he ended up being a performer, getting locked up himself and achieving a huge level of fame. The Naked Cowboy is going to be our guest coming right up. I'm excited to speak with him. You've seen him in movies. You've seen him in Times Square. You've seen him in cities across America. He's going to be with us live in studio with his guitar, so don't miss it. It's going to be great. Folks, don't miss that. Rich Valdez, America at Night, coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, I'm the naked cowboy and I'm keeping it real for you. I'm the naked cowboy. You've got to do what you got to do.
All right, America, welcome back. And as promised, it's the Naked Cowboy. He's in studio with us. We're live in New York. And Robert Burck is his name. You may have seen, if you've ever been in Times Square and you've seen a big naked man with a guitar and a cowboy hat, his name is the Naked Cowboy. He's in the tighty whities, but you've probably seen him in movies and all over the place. I mean, he's a real staple of Americana, and he's here in the studio with us. Robert Burck, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So how does one become a naked cowboy?
I was actually born naked 52 years ago.
Me too.
I was a big Tony Robbins guy. That's what turned my life around. I read a book called Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins around age 17. At that time, I was just working out, trying to be a model, an actor, or a country singer. I was just trying to find a way to get famous. I wanted to be the most famous man in the world, richest, most famous man in the world, most celebrated entertainer of all time. The happiest, healthiest, wealthiest, most beautiful man in the world. And I can go on all day, and I've recorded and documented, wrote my definite chief aim in life repeatedly more than anybody on the face of the earth. So anyway, in 1998, I was flown to California to shoot for Playgirl magazine, a nude magazine. And I was, in shape, so it was like a natural fit, and I thought I'd go out there, I'd be in I thought that was like a big magazine. That's where I was, come from a small town in Ohio. It was something. So I went there. And the day that I was not shooting nude, I went to the Venice Beach Boardwalk in my jeans, a flannel shirt, just fully dressed as a cowboy. Opened my guitar case, started playing, was ignored the entire day. The photographer who was shooting me naked said, "Why don't you play in your underwear? Do something different." Played my underwear on day 2. People took pictures the entire day. I made, over $100 in my guitar case. He called me Naked Cowboy, and I even got on a newsreel in L.A., my first day performing as a Naked Cowboy. So that pretty much was the epiphany. I basically combined the 3 things into one thing. Went to Cincinnati, played on Fountain Square, was arrested, but I made the news. And the next morning, the Tricia Mackey morning show in Cincinnati had me come on. They saw me on the news. And I then had already had all my stuff written out. I'm the most celebrated entertainer of all time. I'm going all over the country. I'm going to do this, do that. And the next day, having declared that, I had a beat-up BMW that I thought was a cool car and whatever. Had like 125,000 miles on it. I got in it with boots, hat, and underwear, drove down to Nashville, called the police and the news on myself as if I were a bystander. The police and news came out. I got the news in Nashville. Went to Atlanta. Same thing. Went to Florida. I went every city all the way down to Key West, Florida. I went all the way out to the end of Key West as well. All the way up, all the way to California and back. We're looking thousands and thousands of miles. In this beat-up car. I was arrested almost, 15 times on my first trip. But I got inside edition, hard copy, those little small pieces, became national. So I'm back in Cincinnati like 50-something days later. I felt so accomplished in my bare empty apartment. I did it. Phone's not ringing. Working at TGI Fridays every day at night, doing the night shifts. And so I went around again. Nothing was going on. Went around the entire... I did that 3 times in the course of 2 years. A friend of mine suggested, he said, if you go north and east, you could get arrested every 2 hours instead of every 12 hours, driving all that way. So I come to Times Square. I just stumbled into Times Square. It was so busy. I went to the Royal Motel in Secaucus and came back day 2, day 3. Now we're at 24 years, 9 months, and like 16 days today.
Wow.
Same parking garage, same everything, same routine.
Happy anniversary.
It's coming up November, I think, 12th.
Look at that. So that was the formula. You figured out you didn't need a PR team, that you could just call the news and then call the cops.
Emerson said, "He who employs the benefits of the most men's labors is the richest man." Today, everybody has the technology. Everybody has the, I have Instagram, TikTok, all that kind of stuff, but it's just completely organic. Whatever I don't do anything except they exist, and I post videos all the time. But everybody else in the world does the marketing, on a daily basis. I do TV shows from all over the world. I mean, everything. Well,
let's talk about some of that. I know I've seen you in a movie. Like, I was watching a movie once, and I was like, oh, wow, it's the Naked Cowboy. And you've become this staple of pop culture well before I'd ever seen you actually in Times Square. How did that happen?
Well, same thing. I mean, I have Naked Cowboy, nakedcowboy.com. And you go to Naked Cowboy, Google anything, countless thousands. It's all me, except for all the weird stuff. No comment. But, same thing. I have my manager, who I attracted to me probably we were probably like 16 years. Todd Rubenstein, and he now runs Naked Cowboy Enterprise. He's also the West Coast distributor for the Blue Island Oyster Company. Our number one selling product is Naked Cowboy oysters from the Long Island Sound. Every oyster in the Long Island Sound is a Naked Cowboy if it's over 3 inches, unlike myself. Now, we have Naked Cowboy scallops now. We've had Naked Cowboy wines, Cameo. We do cameos. I just got like 2 of them since I've been here. It's like being a chiropractor, but instead of working on a patient for like 30 minutes, I get $50 for like 2 minutes of happy birthday to you. Going to the chapel and you name it, roast, inspirational talks, whatever. It takes about a minute or so, so I can go on all day. I mean, it's just been a nonstop proliferation of the Naked Cowboy. Or as I like to say, the entire created universe exists for the proliferation of me. But then again, like I said, I'm so mantra-oriented, I sound like a pretty arrogant at times, but I believe I own the world.
Sounds like self-promotion, which is kind of what you got to do in entertainment.
Yeah, I'm a Trumpster. I talk about me. We get things done, and that inspires other people to understand, rugged individualism, entrepreneurship, capitalism, all the things that make America great. I am the epitome of the American dream.
That's what I was going to say.
Completely
it
unattached
sounds like
to anything
the American
myself.
dream. And that's a beautiful thing. So you go on tour, you do all this stuff, you end up on TV and radio and doing your thing. And you said every day you go to the same parking garage. What does a day in the life of Naked Cowboy look like?
Every single day, including the day I get up around 6:30, 7 when I wake up, put on, the coffee's already on basically, but I sit down and I read Emerson, Nietzsche, Napoleon Hill. Today I'm in, what was I reading this morning? Actually, it was Napoleon Hill, 17 Principles of Success. Again, these are timeless classics, the same stuff, but I read that, then I put my own, I sit down and just journal write. I'm the king of the world. I'm a celebrated entertainer of all time. Everything serves me. I don't get rich. I don't get sick. I don't get old. I only get rich. I only get famous. Every day and every way things are getting better. It's that kind of stuff that's constant. Literally, I just made a post today on my sites. It has a picture of over 800 journals that my manager has. Also, my apartment is streamlined, couch, chair, bed. Same thing we've had, wife. For 11 years coming up. She's a Mexican.
All right. She's one of us.
She's also
brown.
the Naked Cowgirl in Times Square. She's
That's great. I've seen it.
We have franchises. Both guys and girls have worked as Naked Cowboys all over the country and even in Germany and other places.
Oh, really? So if somebody wants a Naked Cowboy for their party and you can't make it, you've got
1% of your
one.
income, signing a contract that indemnifies us if you do anything stupid outside of the actual job. If that's not seemingly stupid enough.
Right.
No, but, they just put their underwear, boots, and hat on. I've had as many as 4 Naked Cowboys working in Times Square while I was there. Titus Gandy was the black Naked Cowboy. He recently passed away, but he was a young kid who probably did 10 years out. Rob Kaufman.
And he worked with you, too?
Yeah. We literally on 4 different corners, and people would knock me out of the way to get to the real one. Naked Cowboy, I would say, is completely known by everyone. However, the actual mechanics behind it, the specifics, knowing who I am actually or what it's all about is,
right.
Everyone will know. Like Friedrich Nietzsche says, a writer does not write to be read; he writes to be learned by heart. To be known. Period. So I'm not stopping until I'm number one.
Folks, we're on with Robert Burck. You know him better as the Naked Cowboy. NakedCowboy.com is his website. We're going to continue our conversation, find out what are some of the challenges he's facing with crime, with illegal immigration, and all that in Times Square. Plus, after that, we're going to talk about his political stuff. He identifies as a Trumpster. He's sitting here in my studio. He's got a Trump 2024 bumper sticker right on top of his guitar. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, if you really want to live and feel the way I feel, you've got to whip out your balls of steel. If you really want to live and feel the way I feel, you've got to whip out your balls of steel. Metaphor.
That is the Naked Cowboy, folks. He's live in studio. And if you've ever been in New York City, you've seen Naked Cowboy. If you've seen him in the movies, you've seen him on television. He's been arrested more than a dozen times for just doing what he does in his underwear. He's extremely popular, highly sought after. It was hard to get him here, but we got him. Naked Cowboy, when you're showing up to work with your tall coffee and getting ready to do what you do and your tighty-whities and your cowboy hat, what type of problems are you seeing in Times Square? When we look at the news, we see problems with illegal immigration. There's hotels that are being overrun that aren't being used anymore. We've got issues with crime. What's it like in Times Square for you?
I would say the most obvious, the thing that I see on a daily basis, and it's not a problem for me, but I can understand why it is a problem. For instance, they have a group of people, maybe a wife, a husband, and even 4 kids. I mean, it's kind of looks like desperate situation, although they seem happy, but they're selling fruit. They make fruit
Shopping
things.
cart.
Yeah, and there's like 100 of them. Well, okay, I walked down to past the New York Times building from 45th, and I probably saw 50 of them. Now, that doesn't bother me. Also, they have water, and they're selling. I mean, there are people literally, if I want to drink, all I got to do is turn around. Someone's within that's not a problem for me. But again, obviously, the problem with that sort of thing is that these companies that pay, whatever they pay to be there, I mean, they're paying, and they're, if they're licensed, they're doing the whole 9 yards. They're not selling a drink anymore. So I'm sure all these places are taking a hit on what they would normally sell as a result of these people coming in and selling on the street. Then, of course, you have see the guys on the bikes and the motorcycle, electric bikes, and it just seems like it's completely unregulated. They're just, hundreds of them, and who cares, right? It's safer, it's environmentally friendly, but everybody who drives a car has a driver's license, they have insurance, they have to have proof of all these things, because if they damage or hurt someone else, they have insurance. Well, when you have all these people with no helmets, no licenses, they're not just a danger to themselves, they're a danger to all of us who are paying the bills and everything else to do it legitimately. So you can see why it's unfair. Then you have the consistent crime. It's usually homeless people. It's usually people that I see every day. They're deranged. They're mentally ill. So you can be sympathetic, etc. But it just seems like it's exponential now. It's like yesterday there was 10 to 20 people fighting 10 to 20 people over where their stand was going to be. So there's space issues. And the police got there 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
That's no, knock against the police. They can't be everywhere at once. But I see people and somebody got knocked out. The ambulance came. I don't know if the guy was alive or just unconscious.
Right.
And I see that all the time, too. It's constant. So everything you would normally see just seems like it's exacerbated. A mutual friend of ours, Curtis Sliwa, he was recently locked up, and his first phone call from jail was to me, and we were talking on the phone about crime and immigration in New York City, and that was what prompted the question for you, because he's telling me that things are just out of control, and that these moped guys, they go around running around. Sometimes they're doing armed robberies and they snatch stuff, and they're out on these little motorcycles or scooters, and I've seen it, but when I'm in the city, I'm going to Newsmax or something like that. It's not. I'm not really going to dinner anymore because it's a little hectic. Are you feeling the economic impact of Bidenflation and Bidenomics when you're at work? Well, definitely. Well, Monday through Thursday, I've got a lot. All the other people, they're the desnudos, which are essentially naked girls. They just have their nipples painted and a G-string that shows more than if they weren't
Spider-Man,
wearing it.
the Hulk.
Yeah, and I've got that, of course. Actually, I just saw yesterday a guy who was doing water, and he was dressed as one of those. He just had the feet on, so he's like 6 feet tall. He's one of those,
like a transformer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've seen that guy.
And I said, weren't you? He said, yeah. I asked him, Nuevo de la País de Venezuela, por ejemplo, but anyway, he was a water guy who's now working with the other, essentially mostly Latinos, I would say.
Yeah.
Or at least they're, I would say they're probably all undocumented immigrants.
Right.
But there are lots. There's 30 Iron Men, 20 Spider-Man. It's got to be confusing.
And they're pretty aggressive.
And then they got, the reason why nobody bothers me is because I don't talk trash about them. But they're all horrible. They rip you off. They're like a gang. And they're all day. I mean, they're very hard-working people, but it's like a holdup. And, there's a lot of things like that in Times Square. And it's on the weekends. I mean, there's so many people that I probably get 1 out of 1,000 people to stop. It's still a $500-$600 day, but I feel like I'm being ignored by the entire world. You just have to be resolute, know what you're doing, clear focus, like I do.
A naked cowboy with tighty whities, a guitar, and a cowboy hat. Otherwise, you're butt naked with your boots on, and you're getting ignored.
I used to be the crazy guy out there. Now I say it all day long. I'm the only normal person in this city, and I can tell you, after I'm going on 25 years. I mean, the real gratitude or real humbling thing about it is the constant flow of people like, I cannot believe you're still here. You look the same as you did before. You're a model guy. We love you. You represent. I mean, I hear that kind of stuff to the point where, I never tire of it. I love adoration. Yeah. I love because I feel like I put in the effort.
Sure.
Rick Pitino, you put in the effort. You have a strong work ethic. You deserve victory and raise your self-esteem, and you keep going, I mean, so it's a self-perpetuating life, if you will. And it's all so anyway, that 2 hours in the morning I'm reading, I go to the gym. Gym's about a mile from my house, so I jog there. Workouts a retro, go retro. Mm-hmm. Get home, get in my Lexus, my brand new Lexus. I'm rich as hell. I've been doing this for a long time. I'll mess around. Naked Cowboy Enterprises said we have endless endorsements, and we just keep going with that. And I drive the city. I do 11 to 6 is what I've done for the last 133 days in a row. I know that because that's the day I don't drink in the summer because I don't need to drink. I don't want to drink. In the winter, I'll use a little vodka and nurse myself through It's just basically relaxes the central nervous system. I have to be 100% responsible to it. It's not like, it's a hard line to walk.
Yeah.
Razor's edge of the now, if you will. So anyway, it's been 133 days, so I know that, and everything has been exactly the same since then. In fact, I've worked every single day since I got back from Daytona Bike Week, where I was arrested 2 years ago. That was that was a world news piece.
Same thing for being naked?
I just got arrested. I'd been there 21 years. They said I was aggressive panhandling. John Phillips of Phillips and Hunt, and he represents the Tiger King. He got us $90,000 for false arrest and working to overturn the illegal ordinance. Everybody knows I don't ask for money. And what was happening is I'm walking down the street and they have little teams of officers patrolling that specific thing. Like when you're driving through New York and all of a sudden everybody's getting pulled over at one corner for having their phone and they're 1, 2, 3 and just cashing in. It was that type of thing, and people were putting money in the guitar, and they came up and said, you can't take money. So I said, I don't care. I'm not worried about money and could care less, not asking for it, and just went about my business. Well, people just continue to come up, take pictures, and they're sliding the money in the guitar. And I was even taken out, and it ended up being like they were kind of being a little rough, and the female officer was
you think they
more manly than your average woman was, I think, trying to be tough. And when she threw me kind of against the guitar, my guitar snapped in half, and it looked brutal.
That's great video.
And then they arrested me, and I was the quickest strip search in town, though. I was in and out there in a second. Turn around, bend over, drop. I was like, hey.
Oh, boy. Folks,
it wasn't pleasant, and it was scary to be in jail. I mean, it's like in the movies where they're putting the line and scratching the line in the wall. I had like 23 of them. I'm like, I've been in here 23 minutes already. It was scary. I didn't like it, but...
Sounds it. Folks, we're on with Naked Cowboy, Robert Burck, the Naked Cowboy, nakedcowboy.com. When we come back, we're going to talk about politics, the 2024 election, and much more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Trump took those regulations off the backs of those corporations. Sounds like a good idea to me. Trump's gonna build a wall. That wall's gonna protect us all. Sounds like a good idea to me. Gonna get the economy moving again. We'll lower taxes for you, my friend. Sounds like a good idea to me. I just want to, we'll go through that, but I want to point out that this song is the same song I wrote. It's as relevant now as it was when it first happened. He's going to do the same thing, and we've seen the reverse. What happens?
Absolutely. Folks, we're on with Robert Burck, and we're talking about the 2024 election. His song here, Trump's Gonna Build the Wall. Naked Cowboy, when you're singing this song in Times Square, what type of reception do you get?
It's constantly, how can you wear that stuff in Times Square? The difference between wearing Trump or not wearing Trump, with Trump, I get a marked number of people who come up and say, let me get a picture. I love Trump. I love Trump. That's what I get. I might get one or two people, the kind that walk by and can't say the word, but F Trump. I mean, like, just literally, it's always the same statement. And they're screaming like they literally just, like the worst thing that ever happened in their life. And they, just like everything, the wilder and crazier and the meaner and the more intimidating a person, the less you need to be concerned. Because, I mean, again, you got 1,000 witnesses. Yeah. I turn into a little silent little lamb, be wise, innocent as lambs and wise as serpents. I sit back and I take a beat no matter what. I'm the champion. I've withheld. I might be seething inside, but again, a man has to be able to be so strong that nothing can shake his sense of self. Period. That's the goal of life.
Yeah, amen. I'm learning that lesson right now, actually.
You're really putting up with me, aren't you?
No, not with you.
He's ready to throw something at me.
I'm thinking outside of the studio, but in reality, it's interesting that you have this parallel where people are very congratulatory for Trump, being that he's 40% ahead, 40 points ahead, in almost every poll for the primaries. I think there's a lot of people that think it's a foregone conclusion that he's it. What's your take?
Well, indict him once, indict him twice, secure the nomination real nice. Sounds like a good idea to me. Old DeSantis really had a chance, about as much as me wearing pants. Sounds like a good idea to me. Indict him, convict him, throw him in jail. No matter what you do, Donald Trump will still prevail. Sounds like a good idea to me. It's a new line. I'm still working on it.
All right.
Indict him indict him, convict him, throw him in jail. No matter what you do, Trump will still prevail. Sounds like a good idea to me. There it is.
Woo! Folks, Robert Burck, the Naked Cowboy, is with us in studio, nakedcowboy.com. And it's great to see you use humor and music to communicate the political message. But we're in a time where there's a lot of polarization. We're seeing other country singers putting out songs, going to #1 on things because people really support the idea of, stay off my back and out of my pocket.
I've been selling my soul, working all day. I've been selling my soul. Help me out. Working all day. For overtime hours, bull crap pay. Yeah. I was singing that all day long. Richmond, north of Richmond. My dad told me, "Hey, your song, you gotta." It's funny. I can't literally just play it like a professional right now because I played it hundreds of times yesterday. I wanted to learn it, wrote the words.
Right.
And that's a cool song. It does, and of course, what do liberals say? It's race. I mean, he does look like he could be in a Proud Boys or something. He looks like a West Virginia old boy. And there are things that would, of course, it's an implication, like African Americans, the only ones that are obese eating fudge rounds and things like that. It gives that kind of impression. But again, I think there's
a lot of horrible people out there.
Yeah, that's everything.
In the 2 minutes we have left, let's talk about who do you think is the matchup in 2024? Do you think it's Trump v. Biden or something else?
I mean, I'm not really. That's not my specialty. To me, it seems. Just looking at it, it's going to be Biden and Trump.
How do you think it ends up?
And again, that's concerning because, again, I'm not going to be one of those election denier type of things. I mean, it just doesn't seem possible that he could have won. But again, there's no evidence for that. Apparently, I still don't know who to believe, even with that. I think again. Indict him, convict him, throw him in jail. No matter what you do, Trump will still prevail. I just see Trump, and it's not even. I mean, I love his policies. I mean, you saw I knew when he was coming down that escalator, for me personally, I said, I guarantee my portfolio is going to go through the roof, and everybody's is, because he is a businessman. He's going to make America stronger, and that's going to make confidence in America. It's going to make and it did. And I knew if Biden got in, it would go down. Like $100,000 went down, and like, I don't know, the first, like everybody's did. It's that simple.
Folks, we're on with Naked Cowboy. We're about to wrap up. Naked Cowboy, you are a patriot and a great guy. I appreciate you. Godspeed to you. Take us out.
Well, LGBT's okay, but 3 bathrooms is a little gay. Sounds like a good idea to me. It's gonna go down in the annals. Trump got the Spanx, Stormy Daniels. Sounds like a damn good idea to me. Gonna protect the cops, cause all lives matter. Throw those thugs in the slammer. Sounds like a good idea to me. Thank God for Donald J. Trump, my friends, making 2024 great again. Sounds like a good idea to me. I'm the Naked Cowboy, and I endorse this product.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed the interview with the Naked Cowboy. That was a lot of fun, Robert Burck. And I got to tell you, he's not the only country singer, turned street performer. There's a bunch of country singers out there that are making a killing. John Rich has a new record out. He's doing fantastic with it. Then there's the country sensation Oliver Anthony, who had that song, The Rich Men North of Richmond. Listen to this. He's making an estimated $40,000 a day from chart-topping music. Fantastic. God bless him. God bless America. The Rich Men of North of Richmond singer recently claimed to have turned down $8 million offers. How about that? Now, he's a rising star. He's the singer who sang that song, The Rich Men of North of Richmond, and making tons of cash. You know why? Because people put their money where their mouth is. People are downloading the song. People are supporting his music. And all I can say is, when was the last time that, any song that you think, from the radical left was hitting number one? Now, you might say, well, all of the other number one songs, but they're not really all radical left. I'm talking about like an AOC type, one of those people, appearing in a music song or something like that. It's not the case, right? Because people, ultimately, they enjoy entertainment, right? You may not like Cardi B, but every now and again I could listen to her songs. And as long as it comes with like a explicit lyrics, parental advisory type of thing, it's kind of like adult entertainment, a Cardi B song. But listen, I'm not going to lie. She's in my playlist. I enjoy some of that stuff sometimes. Guilty pleasure. But I will say, it's just great encouragement for me to see that we're doing so well as a culture. I always talk about the culture wars on this show because I think we have to stand against these things, right? We have to stand for something or fall for anything, right? On my podcast, I always close out by saying that. It's a quote from Lord Acton and Sir Edmund Burke, and then one from Hamilton, which is the only thing that evil needs to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And I believe that, and I believe we should all embrace that and be informed patriots, like Ronald Reagan called us to be, because that's how we do this thing, right? Like Sleva, who was on the other day making his first phone call after he got arrested to us. You got to stand up for the things you believe in. Otherwise, America as we know it won't be as we know it. It won't end, but it's not going to be the way we knew it. Anyway, folks, there's more to come. Straight ahead, the Biden administration swears up and down that gun violence is the #1 killer of children. We're going to find out the truth. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez. It's America at Night, and we're just getting started. Keep it locked right here.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And again, at the top of the next hour, it's Open Phone America, where you guys get to call in and be heard. Any topic that we've discussed, any topic you want to discuss, the phone number, of course, 833-4-VALDEZ. Now, I want to get into a couple of things, because there's been some news that the prosecutors are in talks about having a conversation with Hunter Biden's lawyers about putting the president on the stand. And this kind of circles back to all of those cases, including the gun charge that was here today and gone tomorrow, and here today and gone tomorrow. So I'll keep you up to speed on that. And just yesterday, we saw gun safety groups. They're backing Joe Biden in 2024. They really don't have any other alternative. And the Biden administration has been infamous for touting all sorts of craziness about guns. And just about 10 days ago, Kamala Harris, who I like to call Kamala Harris, the Vice President Kamala Harris, she, which in Spanish means how bad she is, she just laughs off so many questions about gun control. She harps on gun control, but when it comes down to it, all she does is laugh. Check this out.
You've been working so hard for gun safety all this time, and you've seen the changes in it. I'm just wondering how you're thinking about this issue right now in this moment.
Vote.gov.
Y'all heard it, right? You heard it, right?
Right.
Say it loud. Say it. Vote.gov. Say it loud. Tell a friend. Tell a friend.
Tell a couple friends. At least 5.
Listen, Kamala Harris, she doesn't impress me, and I think it is laughable, not because she's funny, but because she's, worthy of laughing at. But this is a serious issue and a serious lie that they've been promoting, saying that guns are the leading cause of children's deaths. And to get to the bottom of it, I want to bring in our guest, Dr. Jon Lott. He's the founder of the Crime Prevention Research Center. He's been on before. Check out the website, crimeresearch.org. Dr. Jon Lott, welcome.
Oh, it's great to talk to you again. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. So let's go straight into this. You got a piece in Real Clear Politics that's pretty good that I was taking a look at, and I'd like you to walk through it to bring the audience up to speed on exposing this big myth that the Biden administration is putting out there, saying that guns are the leading cause of children's deaths in America.
I mean, it's something that they repeat over and over again, as if somehow the more times that they can say it, it somehow makes it true. But you can go to the Centers for Disease Control website, and they have detailed information on things like homicides, accidents, suicides by type, way that people go and have those things done. And if you define children as people under age 18, it's very clear that traffic accidents, for example, exceed that. Even if you add it up the way that they want in terms of homicides, accidents, and suicides, there's an issue that most people don't understand, I think, and that is they think that murders and homicides are the same. Homicides are murders plus justifiable homicides. So if a police officer shoots somebody in self-defense, or if a civilian shoots somebody in self-defense, and these are real self-defense cases, it's not really obvious to me why you want to go and count those the same as murders that are there. And if you do that, then there are many things that are higher in terms of deaths than guns. Suffocations are clearly, even up through 2021, are going to be greater than for guns, for example. But there's another big problem that's there, and that is this assumption that if we could just get rid of guns, then we wouldn't have these deaths that were occurring. And there are a couple things to point out. One is a lot of these deaths are homicides, murders, involving 16, 17-year-old people who are involved in drug gangs. I don't think people appreciate what a large percentage of murders are involved with drug gangs, particularly, unfortunately, for young blacks and, to a lesser extent, Hispanics. And the notion that somehow, if I could ban guns tomorrow, that I'm going to keep drug gangs from getting a hold of guns and using them to fight over drug turf, it's no more serious or be successful than we've been able to stop these drug gangs from getting a hold of illegal drugs. It's not like a drug gang can go and call up the police and say, look, this other gang stole our drugs. Can you help us get them back? They have to go and set up their own little militaries in order to go and protect that valuable property that they have. And, if I could click my fingers and cause all guns in the United States and all illegal drugs to disappear, how long do you think it would be before illegal drugs started coming back into the country? 20 minutes if you're in El Paso? And how long do you think it would be before they'd bring in the weapons that they'd need to have in order to protect that valuable property? But there's a more basic problem here, and that is places around the world have tried banning guns, either all guns or all handguns. We tried it with handguns in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. And every single place around the world that's banned either all guns or all handguns has seen murder rates go up. So it hasn't accomplished what they would hope, and there's a simple reason for that. And that is when you go and you ban guns, it tends to be the most law-abiding good citizens who obey the ban and turn in their guns. And you may take a few guns away from criminals, but if you're primarily disarming law-abiding citizens relative to criminals, you're going to see an increase in murders. It's going to be easier for criminals to go and commit their crimes.
So would you say that it would be more fair, more honest, more transparent to say that these teenagers or youth that are being killed as a result of being in a gang, whether it's a drug gang or whatnot, should be attributed to gang violence as opposed to gun violence? Or is that not a fair assessment?
Well, I think there's a reason why they're in the gangs, particularly with regard to drug gangs, because they can make money doing that. I mean, it's the same. I mean, we've had this before where we had prohibition. 1932 there's some debate, but I think a lot would agree was the highest murder rate that we've had in the United States. You had, the mafia fighting against each other in order to control the sale of alcohol in different places. And, here we have, it's very lucrative, very profitable for them to go and control the drug trade right now. And so people fight against each other in order to control the sale of drugs. And you can see as the profitability for drugs go up and down over time, how hard these gangs fight against each other in order to control the turf changes. And I'll make one other point. The other thing is suicides. And the thing is, again, you can look at places around the world where people have banned either all guns or all handguns. Handguns are primarily used in suicides. And yet, while you will see evidence that firearm suicides fall when you ban firearms, you don't see a change in the total. And it seems to me that's what you care about. What happens to the total number that's there? And if people merely switch from one form of committing suicide to another, then it's not really clear to me what you've accomplished by banning guns. But the assumption when Biden or Harris talk about this being the number one killer of children is that they're implying that if we just get rid of the guns, these deaths wouldn't occur. And that's simply not the case.
Folks, we're on with Dr. John Lott. He's the founder of the Crime Prevention Center, crimeresearch.org. And the Democrat Party is in concert with the Biden administration, fudging the numbers and perpetuating this myth that gun violence is the number one killer of children. And we're taking that apart, doing a deep dive with Dr. Jon Lott, and we're going to continue that conversation straight ahead. If you have a question or you'd like to join the conversation, feel free. 834-825-3337 is the number, 833-4-VALDEZ. We'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So the main themes that tend to get books banned are race, sexuality, and then to some degree history, mostly black history, but things like 1619. We have done, by the way, a couple of books on school shootings. But Art Spiegelman's Mouse, a graphic novel about the Holocaust, banned in some places. George Takei's book, They Call Us Enemy, about how he was a young kid in a Japanese-American internment camp, banned, because there are a bunch of people who just don't want sort of anything that feels like it taints American history or it brings up things about our past out there. They think that's sort of anti-American. But it's just how you look at it. It could be the beauty of it. But to your point, the thing most people fear is their kid getting shot in the safe space that is school. If you're really worried about your kid's safety, that's where your energy should go, not banning books.
All right, folks, that's Ali Velshi on the Morning Joe today saying if you're worried about your kids' safety, gun control is where you should go, not banning books. And again, this is another political sleight of hand that we see. But again, always pushing the notion that it's gun control, taking the guns away from law-abiding citizens and really doing nothing to stop it from getting in the hands of criminals. And we've seen that because the parts of police departments like the anti-crime unit in New York City that was infamous for getting guns off the street, plainclothes guys that were very aggressive in unmarked vehicles, they were disbanded because they said it was no good. And now they have a new version of the anti-crime unit, but they have a modified uniform, but they look like cops. So they don't blend in. You see them coming a mile away, and it's just totally ineffective. And our guest is Jon Lott, founder of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Crimeresearch.org is his website. Dr. Jon Lott, why is it, in your opinion, that the left within the media, the left within the Democrat Party, and all of their acolytes in Washington continue to push this message? Is it one that you feel resonates with some people? Are people really buying this hook, line, and sinker that if gun control is going to make our children safer?
Well, I mean, I think there's some people that surely believe that. You know, look, I think the media has a lot to do with this. If people only hear about bad things that happen with guns and almost never hear about the benefits, I'm not too surprised that you're going to have people who think if I can just get rid of guns, it'll make people safer. The problem is, you know, if you look at the best data we have, it looks like people use guns defensively to stop crime about 5 times more frequently each year than they use them to commit crime. But if you go and look at the news media, we did a deep dive on all the media coverage on gun crimes and defensive gun uses a couple years ago in 2021. And if you look at the top 5 largest newspapers in the United States, the New York Times, the LA Times, the Washington Post, the USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, between them, they had a total of 2,700 plus news stories about gun crimes that were committed. By contrast, those 5 newspapers had a total of 5 defensive gun use stories, 10 defensive gun use stories, and most of those had something go wrong. Either the wrong person was shot or, you know, something else went wrong. And, you know, it's really gives people a really biased view of how guns are used. the vast majority of times that people use guns defensively, about 95% of them, it's not even necessary to fire a gun. Simply brandishing a gun is enough to cause a criminal to go and break off an attack. But if you look at how defensive gun use stories are covered, most of them involve instances where the attacker has been killed. Almost all the rest involve instances where the attacker has been wounded. Only about 4% of news stories actually involve brandishing, whereas about 95% of cases actually involve brandishing. And it's understandable why the media covers these things the way they do. If you're an editor of a news bureau and you have a dead body on the ground, or let's say you have a story where a woman's brandished a gun and the would-be criminals run away, no shots are fired, no crime actually committed, you're not even sure what crime would have been committed. I think anybody, myself or you, would probably pick the first story as being more newsworthy. But just because something's newsworthy doesn't mean that it reflects reality in terms of the rates that things actually happen. And there are lots of other things like mass public shootings, for example. People have this impression that the United States somehow leads the world in terms of these attacks, and nothing could be further from the truth. When you adjust for population, many countries in Europe have higher per capita rates of mass public shootings than we have here in the United States. The problem is, again, I can understand why the U.S. media covers attacks in the United States more than they're going to cover them in other countries. But I'll give you an example. Since the clip you had mentioned school shootings, since 2000, we've had 10 mass public school shootings in the United States where 4 or more people have been killed. A country like Germany has had 3. Okay, but what people don't seem to realize is the United States has 330 million people. Germany has 80 million. So we have more than 4 times the number of population. If you adjust for population differences, that would be the equivalent of Germany having 12, which is more than our 10. Or you take a country like Finland, which has had 2 mass public school shootings over that period of time. Finland has a population.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think their goal is just to make this false equivalency that because there's more guns in America, there's more gun violence.
No, I think that's exactly right. And, there's so many things that are done. You'll go and you'll see the New York Times or the Washington Post have a graph that will go and talk about gun ownership in different countries. And they'll look at like 12 or 13 developed countries. And then they'll go and they'll say, the United States has a high rate of murders compared to these other countries. But, you take developed countries, there's like, if you take kind of the club of developed countries that are there, they say there's 36 developed countries. Why pick 12 or 13 from that? And there are lots of other countries that may be close to that. And it's just, I'll give you one other interesting example, and that is if you look at homicide rates across all countries, the United States is below the average. We're below the median. More than half the countries have a higher rate. But in terms of firearm homicide rates, we're relatively high. And it's not, and it's only because only about half the countries report firearm homicide.
All right, John Lott, thank you for that information. Founder of Crime Prevention Research Center, crimeresearch.org. Dr. Lott, thank you for being with us. The music means they're kicking us out, but I appreciate you being here. Folks, more to come straight ahead.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And I want to ask you a question. Do you know what a rad-trad Catholic is? A radical, traditional Catholic? The real mean, bad ones that go to Latin Mass? Yeah. Well, apparently the FBI has been targeting those, and we've talked about that many times on this program. But Congressman Jim Jordan has been threatening FBI Director Wray with contempt over targeting parents, over targeting Catholics for being radical traditional. We had audio just about a week ago of Alejandro Mayorkas saying, well, this was one person's work product and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And did he get fired? Of course he didn't get fired, but, he was trying to say that, yeah, the targeting of Catholics and putting informants in churches was it was egregious. It wasn't the right thing to do for the federal law enforcement investigatory arm of the federal government to do this. And he kind of acknowledged that as such. But yet it happened. It happened on his watch. The FBI is doing it. And it's just very interesting to see how this is playing out. So kudos to Congressman Jim Jordan for threatening Director Wray with contempt. I just think, what is that going to do, right? He gets the contempt. He laughs. He's not going to be putting leg irons like what's his name? Peter Navarro, drawing a blank for a second, or others who were arrested for contempt. So where do we get with all this? Well, to help us make sense of it and give us an update on the issue, we've got Jon Schweppe. He's the policy director at the American Principles Project. Welcome back, Jon Schweppe.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
You bet. So let's dig into this. What is going on with this confrontation that we've got with Chairman Jordan and the FBI playing these political games?
Well, we've been seeing it more and more from these intelligence agencies and also this DOJ, an effort to really go after right-wing extremists, right? We saw it a couple of years ago with the parents in Loudoun County, going to school board meetings, and there was a memo sent around, looking to investigate them for being domestic terrorists, for, wanting to know what's happening with their schools, with their kids. And, this is a similar type of thing. The way they phrased it, the radical traditionalist Catholics, these are people who, go to Mass every Sunday and maybe occasionally attend a Latin Mass. And, those are dangerous people. We have, a lot of folks here in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia has a pretty strong Catholic diocese. And, these are people who really believe in pro-life and, the traditional view of marriage and these types of things. And so, of course, this is a target for the Biden administration, unfortunately, and that's what this is really about. So, ultimately Congress, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Congress has limited power here. Ultimately they can, discipline with a censure, essentially, is what, the contempt thing is. But you do have to give Jim Jordan credit. I mean, this is, he's a bulldog, right?
100%.
He's getting to the bottom of this. And, this is where Republicans need to take this step and use it in the elections, because it is really, it shows how extreme this administration is.
I look at this and I think it ultimately, at the end of it, what happens, right? And I agree. We give Chairman Jordan a lot of credit because their role is oversight. It's not law enforcement, and they're doing what they're supposed to do in Congress, and kudos to them. But ultimately, the most that they can do is make a criminal referral to the Department of Justice to do what with the FBI director, right? It seems like it's a non-starter. But ultimately, I think the bigger issue here is the American public realizing what it is that our FBI is doing. We're thinking that they're solving, kidnappings and bank robberies, which I'm sure they are. There's a lot of great men and women in the FBI. But the rank and file have been really hyper-politicized, and I think there's a lot of ideologues there that are just making one political power play after the next to achieve whatever goal they have politically. And using the power of the Department of Justice, the power of the FBI, to go after Trump, to go after Trump's friends, to go after Trump's lawyers, to go after radical traditionalist Catholics, to go after violent domestic extremists, to go after the parents that have a threat tag assigned to them, who are, speaking up at school board meetings because they don't want children to be raped in bathrooms by transgender children, other transgender. To me, this is so bizarre that we would sweep this stuff under the rug and turn a blind eye to these things. But yet here we are.
Yeah. Well, only under a Democratic administration would we be sweeping a blind eye to this stuff. It's hard not to think of the parallel of the early 2000s and how the media and the Democrats were, watching the Bush administration like a hawk to make sure that none of the intelligence agencies were investigating mosques, right? I mean, that was the talk of the town at the time. And, here we have what is clearly religious discrimination, an effort to basically bully Catholics and devout Catholics at that. And, of course, it's not a big deal because they're the right type of folks to go after. But look, I think, at the end of the day, this is ultimately what we have to show. There's a two-tiered justice system here. And I actually think it's going to be very easy if Trump's the nominee, to connect the indictments against him to these types of actions by DOJ and by the FBI against the rest of us. And, he has a famous line where he talks about, they're not coming after me, they're going after you, and I'm just the only one standing in the way. And I think if that's the theme of the campaign, and they really go after how the Biden administration has weaponized the justice system, I think that's going to be really effective, and I think the American people are going to be pretty upset by when they learn about all of this.
I think you're right, Jon Schweppe, Policy Director at the American Principles Project. And we're going to come back, continue this discussion, and throw in a couple of other topics with Jon Schweppe. So keep it locked right here. And, of course, if you have a question on any of this or a statement you'd like to make, feel free. 833-482-5337, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back. We're on with Jon Schweppe. Jon Schweppe is the Policy Director at the American Principles Project. And we're talking about all things that are going on. There's a Republican debate that's coming up. There are issues facing families all across America. There's lots of American principles that are currently under threat by the current regime in the White House. And it's patriots like Jon Schweppe that are out there doing the work on the front lines. And I'm glad you're here, Jon. Let's talk a little bit about what you see unfolding, or I should say what you're following right now through the American Principles Project. What are some of the big projects you're working on?
Well, we are a social conservative group, and so, with the exception of the issue of abortion, the last few years have actually been pretty darn exciting. Well, I guess on abortion as well. But, we've really had a lot of breakthroughs on fighting against this woke transgender agenda. And, one of the things that's been so exciting in particular has been watching the Republican Party, which, as you know, Rich, just a few years ago was averse to a lot of these social issues, finally start to champion them and take advantage and appeal to some of these voters who, find the left to be really extreme on this stuff. It started kind of with the Governor Youngkin's revolution here in Virginia in 2021. And, it's been building since then. So that's been a big focus of ours. And then also, we got some exciting stuff coming down the pike with age verification and online pornography, and that's going to be a fun issue to talk about over the next year.
Let me ask you a question, because there's always these crazy videos that you see on libs of TikTok and other places that show these very radical people, like people in my lifetime I've not seen in real life, but I know they exist, and I know they're in places like San Francisco and New York City and other big metropolitan areas that are very left-leaning. But I got a clip I want to play for you. It's a trans activist from Libs of TikTok saying that when, kids know that they're transgender, and if a toddler tells you that they're trans, you got to believe them. Check this out.
When a kid tells you that they're transgender, believe them. A lot of people will say that it's impossible for a 4-year-old to know if they're trans or not, but actually that's not true. They can know, and here's why. From day one, gender is baked into everything we do. You either have a boy name or a girl name, boy toys or girl toys, boy clothes or girl clothes. So from an early age, kids understand the difference between boy and girl, and more importantly, which one they're expected to be. So it makes sense that if what they feel inside is different than what they're expected to be, that they might feel uncomfortable, and they might want to talk about that discomfort. And we all know that kids are good at talking about how they feel. For example, mommy, I skinned my knee. Mommy, someone called me a name on the playground. Or even, mommy, I don't like wearing boy clothes. These are all similar feelings of discomfort that we can talk about to our parents. That's not to say that all kids will realize they're transgender when they're little. A lot don't. I didn't until I was 27, but I can't tell you how many people I've met that knew they were trans at 4 or 5 years old. So if there's a kid in your life who's telling you they're trans, please believe them. They know what they're talking about, and your support might save their life.
So this clownish weirdo, he says that kids know that they're transgender, and if a 4-year-old tells you they're trans, you got to believe them. However, I think this is absolute insanity, and there are adults that don't know this difference, but yet we're supposed to believe that a 4-year-old knows this, and I think this is a very dangerous place to be, a very slippery slope, because you start to get some well-intentioned parents hearing stuff like this, consuming it on TikTok and Instagram and other places, and they start thinking, maybe I always wanted a girl. Maybe my little boy wants to be a girl. What's wrong with that? You know, gender's a construct of your mind, not a construct of biology. So what the heck? This is the new cool thing to do. And I find this crazy. I mean, call me whatever you want to call me, a bigot, this phobe, that phobe. But I'm a dad of 2 girls. They've been girls since they were born. They're still girls today, thank God. But and I don't criticize people that are going through an issue with a child that has gender dysmorphia. That's not my point here. My point here is that this type of, I'm going to call it propaganda, it really, in my opinion, it isn't helpful to the national dialogue, but I don't want to curtail their ability to say what they say. I just think that we need to do better in our national conversation, and I know groups like yours are taking the lead on that, Jon Schweppe.
Yeah, I think, the debate over this stuff, ultimately, it's changed a lot in 20 years, right? I mean, I certainly remember as a kid, how important it was to defy gender, right? So we were trying to encourage girls to go out and play sports. We were trying to tell guys, if you're into makeup, I guess that's fine. It's changed a lot in just 20 years. But, the thing that really, that voters care about, when you start talking about kids, and when you have a creepy teacher, saying that parents need to realize that a 5-year-old knows best or whatever, I have a 5-year-old. If my 5-year-old wakes up tomorrow and tells me he's a girl or he wants to wear a dress, I'm going to tell him, no, actually, you're a boy and you wear boy clothes. That's the role of a parent. But I think it's really important that we have to push back against this. You're right, actually, and I really appreciate the angle you took on it. A lot of parents are being exploited in all of this. You have these medical professionals, you have these school professionals, all of whom are telling them, hey, if you don't transition your kid, permanently sterilize them, they're going to go kill themselves, right? And so these parents are being put under just a horrible situation. I think we need to make that stuff illegal. We need to make it where, medical professionals don't have the option to sterilize your kid.
Yeah, I think that the safe and happy medium for all of this is, look, if you want to serve the United States military, you've got to be a certain age. If you want to vote, you've got to be a certain age. Buy cigarettes, a certain age. Buy a gun, certain age. All sorts of things. You have to be a certain age. But all of a sudden, to have a sex change operation or undergo hormone therapy or anything like that, and not hormone therapy to help you, like if you're prepubescent and your doctor thinks, you see an endocrinologist and they think you're not going to hit puberty on time to give you estrogen or to give you testosterone to help you be what you are. I'm talking about going the other direction. I think it's insanity. And there's a couple of doctors out there that say this, but they've hijacked this conversation from the top, and it's many years coming. right? I mean, this is a little bit off, but not that different. You know, doctors like Alfred Kinsey and Daniel Carlton Gajusek, these guys spent their careers in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you know, speaking to the American Pediatric Association, telling them things like, you know, kids can experience orgasms, babies can experience orgasms, children are highly sexual. And I think this is sacrilege, right? This should not happen, but yet it's happening. And I just, for the life of me, can't figure out why.
It's because, you know, unfortunately, we have allowed the far left woke progressives to capture every institution and push this stuff down our throats. And ultimately, the only way we're going to be able to stop this is through politics. And the good news is, you know, we've run countless polls, focus groups, and, you know, when you talk to normal people, even people who hate Donald Trump, are liberal on abortion, all sorts of things, you know, when it comes to this, they say exactly what you just said, actually. They say, you know, you're not allowed to smoke until you're 18. You're not allowed to make a sports bet. How can you make the decision to never have children, right? And this is the type of stuff that, you know, we have to really communicate. Yet, you know, we want to have compassion for everybody, but, you know, these types of irreversible surgeries and awful treatments, no way. We need to ban that stuff.
100%. Jon Schweppe, Policy Director at the American Principles Project. Check them out at AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. And we're coming right back with Jon Schweppe to wrap up. You're going to hear a little bit about what they're doing and how you can get involved. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And our guest, Jon Schweppe, he's the Policy Director at the American Principles Project. He's out there on the front lines, and if you want to support them, he's going to tell you how. Jon Schweppe.
Well, we are on Twitter, or X, I guess as it's called, at AP Project. And then I'm on Twitter as well at Jon Schweppe. And then we have our small dollar program, Big Family. We called it that because, you know, we wanted to be like big oil or big pharma, except we actually want to fight for families. And so you can join that over at our website, AmericanPrinciplesProject.org.
Folks, join the big family lobby, the American Principles Project. They're doing great work out there. They're kicking butt and they're taking names. Jon Schweppe, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for being with us and staying up late.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Rich.
You bet, brother. Take care. God bless. All right, folks, Open Phone America's coming up, and I can't wait to speak with you guys. There's a lot of stories out there. Congressman George Santos, who I just saw about an hour ago, he was in Queens today, speaking out against illegal immigration. Then we go to Florida. We got a brawl that erupted at a chicken wing spot after women intentionally clogged the toilet. We'll get to that as well. And there's a couple of other interesting stories I want to discuss. Plus your calls, your opinions, your thoughts on all of the hot news stories of the day. Let's get it going on. Get your calls in now, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And remember, call in early, because if you call in at the end of the show, you may not be able to get on. Anyway, we're coming right back. Don't move a muscle.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you this Tuesday evening. Our phone number, if you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation that we call Open Phone America, where you get to weigh in on any topic, plus the topics we've discussed, 833-485-3337, 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. And tonight, we've talked about a couple of different things. Of course, this is the third hour of the program, so if your station doesn't carry the first 2 hours of the program, make sure you contact your program director and let them know what you want to hear. Because we had an amazing interview with the Naked Cowboy, and we talked about everything from Jason Aldean's song and Oliver Anthony's song and John Rich's new song to his support for Trump and the stuff that he faces in New York City with immigration and just the crime problem that there is. It was a great interview. I had a lot of fun with it. He had his guitar. He was strumming along, singing throughout the interview. It was a good time. And we also had a really in-depth, deep dive with Dr. John Lott on how the Biden administration is constantly positioning the leading cause of death for children as gun violence, and that's nothing more than a myth. And that was exposed in that segment that we did. We did 2 segments with him. And not everybody has the opportunity that we have here on this program where we can have people from multiple segments, long segments. We're not talking just, 6 minutes or 3 minutes like you'd get on TV or even some radio programs, where we get a really deep dive with our guests. And it was really, really a in-depth interview. And we also talked about some of the stuff facing families with one of the representatives from the Big Family Lobby, the American Principles Project. And that was a really good interview, I think, with Jon Schweppe. Very eye-opening, the things that are going on in America. And I want to get your thoughts on those, plus a bunch of other things I want to talk about, because immigration continues to kind of run amok. Mexico's, I guess we're calling them their most elite cartel unit, now has a drone unit, an elite drone unit. And this is some news coming out of Ciudad Juarez in Mexico. One of the most violent cartels just created their own elite unit of drone operators, a highly trained group of sicarios dedicated to tweaking commercial drones and turning them into flying bombs to use against rival cartels and Mexican authorities. This is interesting stuff. Now, Mexican officials and cartel members revealed this to the Daily Beast. Now, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG for its Spanish acronym, began weaponizing commercial drones more than 4 years ago, according to researchers and Mexican authorities. This is fascinating. I mean, of course this is happening, but usually you hear napalm bombs, this, that, guns that they're stealing or buying. But this is big time, right? Now they got drones. It's like the cartel is already a very effective army, and now they have drones. So it just makes me think, if we don't step up our game at the southern border, we're going to be in a world of hurt. And earlier tonight, I was at an event, and just on Sunday, twice this week, I've bumped into Congressman George Santos. And the elusive George Santos, he was coming on the show, then he didn't come on the show because he got into a lot of drama, and he's trying to let that die down, and he's trying to get reelected. And I'm hoping that we'll have him on the show. I'd love to have a conversation with him that you all could participate in. But I saw him, and earlier today, he was in New York City, in Queens, discussing the craziness of illegal immigration. And I think that's a very important topic, even if, you're questioning the messenger, Congressman Santos. But on this one, I got to say, I think he's right. And we have a clip of audio from that. Check this out.
Immigration has become a humanitarian crisis in this country. This isn't about not wanting to help folks. This is about acknowledging that this is a crisis led on by bad policy, a crisis that we, House Republicans, voted on H.R. 2 earlier this year, and House Democrats and Senate Democrats refused to advance a resolve. So now we're dealing with this here. 1,000 migrants fit into tents behind us. The same tent structures that we have out in El Paso, Texas, where I visited several weeks ago. same exact structure. So to think that this is now here in, quite frankly, I call this a little the suburbs of New York City.
So that's Congressman George Santos. And again, the New York Post has a piece that they wrote on this, and they described him as serial lying, scandal-scarred Congressman George Santos, expressing outrage and indignation over New York's migrant crisis and mocking Democrats for fumbling the issue. I have to agree with that statement. The Democrats have truly destroyed this thing. I mean, we've got the cartel is now armed with drones, and we've got the mayor of New York City, who, again, he's on the front line. Where is he? Santos says the mayor is in Israel running away from the fact that this crisis is increasing. Now, Santos, who's under indictment himself and for fraud, money laundering, and all that stuff, he was out there outside the Creedmoor Psychiatric Center, which is where Curtis Lewa got arrested and made his first phone call to this program once he was released. So it's just so interesting to see that this continues to be an issue that's under-addressed, I think, in the media. And we need to get our hands on this so that our neighbors know, our friends know, everybody knows. This is not a Democrat versus Republican issue, in my opinion. Everybody is going to pay the price with unchecked illegal immigration in our nation. That's just the bottom line. This has nothing to do, like he said, about helping people. It has nothing to do with being anti-Hispanic, anti-African, anti-anything. It's about you can't displace yourself and your own people and put such a strain on the system that we have that's already stretched so thin. But here we are. This is what the Democrats are doing. So I want to go to the phones and get you guys to weigh in on any of our guests tonight. We've had a lot of good discussions, like I said, on gun control and a bunch of other things, as well as this immigration issue. If you want to weigh in on that, the number is 833-482-5337. And after that, I want to get to this story. I really want to get to this one. I don't know why I find these stories interesting, but remember a couple of weeks ago, there was a big brawl in Alabama on a dock, and it was interesting to watch because it starts out looking kind of fake to me. The guy, it looks like a WWE type of styled, brawl, and then they start hitting people with chairs. But after you watch the video for a little bit, you're like, oh, wow, that's real. This is crazy. and there were a bunch of memes immediately created that were very funny. People, mocking them and recreating the videos in their backyards and whatever. And it was fun to mock, but it's a serious issue. I mean, it wasn't really a serious issue, but it was a real fight is what I'm trying to say. But another fight broke out in Florida, and I want to get to that when we come back. But let's go to the phones real quick and check in with Mary, St. Joseph, Missouri, listening on KMA out of Iowa. Mary, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hello. It's so good to talk to you again. Thank you for taking my call. I was listening very intensely to all of your guests, but when the man was on that was talking about gun control, I agreed with a great deal of what he said, and I'm not anti-gun. However, this year we have had a gun manufacturer, the company is Lee One Tactical, that is producing a 2-pound JR-15 rifle that looks like an AR-15, only it's littler, and they were marketing it to children with a skull and bones, and the skull had a pacifier in its mouth. And I just wondered, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I don't know much about it. I'm looking at the image. It doesn't seem to me that it's being marketed to children per se. I think it has a cartoonized skull and bones on it. And ultimately, I mean, again, would it be my choice? No, but I realize that there's a lot of interesting mascots and logos for lots of things. For example, there's a big insurance company, the government employees insurance company, Geico. They use a small lizard, a gecko, as their logo. Camel cigarettes had Joe Cool, the guy with the cigarettes and the sunglasses on. I think everybody uses a different approach to try and market things. I'm sure there's a story behind that little story, but I don't see how that would necessarily be something that is for children. Now, I have seen some ads that people have posted where it seemed a little questionable how they were marketing things, but this one I can't say seems to be one. It doesn't look like a toy. It doesn't, to to me, come across as something that is in any way marketed to children. But I understand your point in that, it's a skull and bones. I just, immediately thinking of that, I think, I don't know, it's like a pirate fetish that they have. And the rum maker, Captain Morgan, right? He's a very comical looking pirate. And I just think some people try to they'll do anything, right, to get it out there. And I don't think they're marketing Captain Morgan to children by making him look like Jack Sparrow or something like that. I think ultimately people are just trying to do something. Now, that's very different, in my opinion, when it's very clear, right? When you're making children-sized things. If they were making a small gun and marketing it to children, I'd say, well, that's probably problematic. And if you like alcohol, if you're a wine connoisseur, and I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I enjoy the Malbec that comes from Argentina. When you go to a website for that stuff, you have to log in and say you're 21. And again, kids can lie online, no doubt. But the point is that there are some controls in place, and ultimately it's up to the parents to control what their children are consuming on the internet or on social media. So I say all of that to say ultimately I believe in free speech. Let them market it how they want. If the market doesn't respond, then it didn't work, right? I think the true test of everything is the marketplace of public opinion, the marketplace of the free market that'll really decide. And if it were something that was, smaller sized, maybe marketed towards women who have made smaller hands and they're trying to say, good for your kids or teens, I wouldn't necessarily be against that either. But I don't think that's the case here. I think it's just, this cartoonized skull and bones with a pacifier in its mouth, which is silly. But I see so many skulls and bones all over the place. The Punisher logo is all over the place. People seem to like it and gravitate toward it and kind of make it a thing for their group or their belief or whatever. I'm not against it. I'll tell you what I am against is if you create bathing suits for boys that look like girls' bathing suits and say that it's tuck friendly so that your child who may have male genitalia can wear a female one-piece or bikini and safely tuck or hide their male genitalia. That, I think, is just crazy. And again, if they want to sell it, let them sell it. It's up to us to sound the alarm on people and say, look, I don't think that's a good idea. Target's doing that. It's on you if you want to buy things at Target or not and support that or not support it. So that's kind of where I land on it. But I thank you for your call because I think it was an interesting take. And maybe I don't know enough about it and we can find out more. But thank you, Mary. I appreciate it. We're going to continue with your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And, Mary from Missouri brought up a good point that I'd like to get some of your feedback on. If you don't mind, take a second, give us a call. I want to hear your thoughts on this. But do you think it's a bad thing for a junior AR-15 that's marketed towards parents, really, right? Because your kid can't buy the gun anyway. But parents to buy, their teenager's first gun or their 12-year-old's first gun or whatever, their 5-year-old, whatever it is when you want to start teaching your kids how to shoot. Is it a bad idea? Is it vile, as Gavin Newsom was saying? Is it a vile thing that there's a gun that is safe for children to use, a little bit smaller, that fits in their hands, or for women who have smaller hands, or men who may have smaller hands? Anybody who wants a slightly smaller version of the AR-15 that they're calling the JR-15. And to be their first gun, to train them on gun safety and whatnot. Again, I don't see the issue in it because, again, a kid can't pass a background check or get a firearms ID card or anything like that. But it's an interesting thing, and maybe I'm just looking at it because, like I was telling the folks in the break, my niece has a 9mm. It's pink, and she's had it since she was 12, and she's been shooting it for years. So I don't personally see a problem with that. She's never shot anyone, never had an accident with it. She knows how to use it. She's a safe firearm operator, if you will. And I think that's the right way to teach your kids so that they don't, learn the wrong way. But what do I know? So give me a call on that, 833-482-5337. We're going to get to your calls in a moment. I just wanted to circle back on this Florida brawl story, right? So this big brawl erupted at a chicken wing spot after some women intentionally clogged the toilet at the restaurant. 5 women intentionally clogged the toilet outside of a Florida chicken wing restaurant over the weekend, igniting a brawl between the group and the employees. The incident began around 9 p.m. on Saturday at Papa B's in Longwood. It's a suburb of Orlando. And a supervisor told the authorities the women stuffed a restroom toilet with wads of toilet paper so that they would clog the toilet. These women were blamed because they were the only customers in the restaurant at all. Now, an employee cleaned the bathroom. However, one of the women went inside the bathroom afterwards, and the toilet was stuffed with toilet paper again. And that's according to the arrest report obtained by Fox News 35. So the restaurant supervisor then told the women they needed to leave since it was almost closing time. The supervisor then found out the toilet was clogged again, and the women became very upset by this. They were irate. They began yelling. Now, once they were told to leave, one of the women punched a supervisor in the face, and other women started kicking, punching, pulling hair, throwing things. According to the police report, the restaurant supervisor sustained a cut behind her ear and bruises on her leg and arm. Absolute insanity. Now, another employee came to help the supervisor who was catching a beating by these 5 women, and then one of the women allegedly slapped her and began to throw chairs. The fight was eventually broken up by other store employees, and the women fled the scene. They knocked over chairs and were throwing salt and pepper shakers. They were detained by the responding police, and the women have been identified as Kenesha Charles, 18 years old, Taisha Charles, 19 years old, Kiyanda Charles, 24 years old, and Jasmine Klein, 26, as well as Jelena Smith, who's 20 years old. They've all been charged with disorderly conduct, battery, and criminal mischief. So the bigger issue here is people are just out of control. These people showed up to work in a restaurant, do their thing, and they were met with these unruly teenagers and young adults. And we see this all over. And when I was on the air in Philly, we saw it all the time. In New York City, you see it all the time. Young people are out of control, and this is indeed a problem. Anyway, your thoughts on that and more straight ahead. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. We'll see a bunch of calls on the line. We're going to get to those momentarily. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez. It's America at Night, and we're coming right back.
Well, Mr. Valdez, you have one of the greatest shows that radio's ever had.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, familia, welcome back. And there's a story in CNN, of all places. Listen to this. Wind-powered cargo ship sets sail in a move to make shipping greener. Now, at first notion, you think, wow, a wind-powered cargo ship. What a novel invention to go green, right? It's reminiscent of the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. So I will say to you about sailboats, I will say to you this. That is a throwback to the time of Christopher Columbus. who, according to all my friends on the left, was a colonialist, right? A colonizer, an evil man, a very vile person is what they say. So now the Green New Deal has become the emblem of an evil colonizer. Fascinating. The left eats their own all the time. Now, this is not necessarily a sailboat. These are, big tankers. But they've put together this ship that operates on wind, which, in effect, is a modern-day sailboat. They're making it some sort of convention. It's really, really not, in my opinion. But we could debate that later. I want to get to your calls because we've got a lot of people that are dialing in to weigh in on our topic, several topics. So let's go to Frank. He's in Akron, Ohio, WNIR. Frank, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, Rich. It's an honor. Hey, I'm an old man, but there's a big difference between a 22 and a 223, an AR-15.
Oh, yeah.
And there was an egotistical, and I don't consider him a real hunter, that recently shot a moose with an AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's an egotistical bastard looking to hold a record, but I don't think it's a hunter, and I was a hunter, that with any degree of mercy that people were going to use AR-15s to shoot something like a moose.
Right. But I think your initial point is really the one that weighs in on this topic, that this JR-15, right, it looks like an AR-15. It's a little bit smaller, but it's a 22 sporting rifle. It's not a 223, which is a way bigger round. And I'm not a hunter, so I haven't shot any animals with any guns. But I can tell you, I shoot paper targets. But the debate here that this is somehow, being marketed towards kids is really, for me, I'm thinking kids can't buy guns. Parents have to buy guns for kids. And if you want to take your little one to target practice and, train them in hunting or doing whatever, go right ahead and use a smaller round. I think that's the safe thing to do to start a kid off. Do you agree?
I agree with you, Rich. And I think it's just a money-grabbing scheme by the gun manufacturers, and I agree with you. When you go hunting anything bigger than groundhogs or something like a moose or deer or something, I think you need to have something with a little more punch.
Right, so that they die. And you don't torture the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. The last thing, my brother's a hunter. And I remember he started off as a fisherman and then he moved into hunting. And I remember he went, and similar story, there was a bad shot or too small of a round. Either way, this deer, they didn't take it out. And he said it was the most horrible thing to see a deer go through that agonizing pain when they took the shot and it hit the deer, but it wasn't good hunting, right? It was a bad experience for him, and I totally agree with you. If you're hunting, get the job done. Don't sit there and go through something that could be, especially a moose. A moose is bigger than my car, and I drive a big SUV. You need something with some stopping power to make sure that you're getting the moose, not A, pissing it off, or B, torturing the poor thing. So I'm with you on that one, Frank. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Big shout out to WNIR, Akron, Ohio. Let us continue. Let's go to Florida. Marco Island, Florida, WGUF. Let's go to Bob. Bob, you're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Well, hello. Good evening, Rich. Love your show.
Thank you, sir.
But my question would be, when you hear the fellow on from the progressive movement, I wonder, I listen to some of these, and this is fairly big down here where the church I go to. Why aren't these people asked to identify themselves, or at least ask why they're doing what they're doing with these children in some of the acts? Because I understand that they're very anxious to and proud to say that they are of the homosexual community and that they're doing this because they think it's the right thing to do. But they like to identify themselves per se as being involved in that action. And I think they ought to be identified.
Yeah, listen, well, this is an interesting topic, right? Back in the 80s, there was a lot of what was called gay bashing happening in the Greenwich Village area of New York City. And they were going after flamboyant homosexuals that really took over the area, and that's where they live, and they bought lots of property, and it's a gay area. And many of the people that were, critics of the change in the neighborhood and whatnot were saying, look, I don't care if you're gay, but just keep it in the closet. And the members of the homosexual community felt like, look, we're gay, we're loud, we're proud, this is what we do. And I believe that's their right, whether I like it or not. And I have the choice to not go to the village with my children if I don't want them exposed to that or whatever and what have you, right? That everybody has a choice and everybody's free to identify as what they want to identify as. I think the issue that we see in Florida, especially with the public school, is that you've got local governments, school boards and whatnot, trying to, I'm going to say, usurp parental authority. And I think this is really where the big issue is. Your child, most parents, I believe, and again, speaking as a parent and as, somebody who understands school boards and whatnot, you send your kid to school with the expectation that your kid is going to receive an education. And I think for a generation or many generations, the expectation was academic and maybe somewhat social in so much as teaching politeness, manners, even patriotism. But that has dissipated, and now we're teaching what they like to call social emotional learning and different types of critical theory, critical gender theory, critical race theory, and whatnot. That's a very, very hot topic because parents don't necessarily subscribe to that ideology. And if you are going to teach that, and I think it should be taught in the later grades or in college, like high school or something like that, you need to present it with the alternative view. Or people saying there are people that think that, no, society was built on men and women having children and building a family. The cornerstone of American society has really always been the American family, the traditional family. So I think there's a debate to be had there, and I agree, it doesn't belong in schools. So I think people can call themselves whatever they want to call themselves. And I truly believe in the free marketplace of ideas. And if your idea is better than mine, then you're going to win. I can't stifle your idea because I don't like it, but I can speak out against it and say, look, I don't agree with that for the following reasons. I don't think children should be introduced to gender, sex, or any of that stuff in kindergarten through third grade, which is what Governor DeSantis proposed and then signed into law in the Parental Rights in Education Act, which the media falsely turned around and called it the Don't Say Gay bill, saying that, now you can't say gay in school. Now, that wasn't the point. He was saying you can't say straight, you can't say anything. Don't teach that stuff to kids, period. They're here to learn. Don't over-sexualize or hypersexualize or sexualize, period, any of the kids. It's just not a good idea. So I think that's the crux of the issue. And good on your church for speaking out against that. And if the church doesn't take a role, if people don't take a role, everybody and anybody who cares about this stuff needs to do their part, whatever that part may be. We can't always rely on, Schilling and Jon Schweppe and the American Principles Project and the American Family Association and all of these other great big family organizations that are out there fighting for families. We can't rely on them all the time. We have to support and help and do our part. So I think it's important for people to be aware of these things, to have this conversation, and for parents to always have the right so that the school isn't teaching their kid, especially, and if this sounds bad, I meant it, especially somebody who may be suffering from gender dysmorphia and identify this way, that way, or a different way, that ends up teaching your kid's class. If you have this issue and that's your prerogative, you don't bring that into your workplace, especially when you're working with children, because your goal is not to indoctrinate these children or to normalize this in any way. But we've seen tape after tape and video after video of activist teachers actively trying to recruit, convince, persuade, and indoctrinate children to think that gender doesn't matter. Whatever you feel like, you can be. And I can tell you, my little girl, when she was in pre-K, before kindergarten, there was a cute little graduation ceremony. She went to a pre-K out of a church called Little Blessings, and it was a very cute ceremony, lovely. And at the end, they asked the kids they asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they put it in the graduation program. And my kid said, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor and a watermelon, because watermelons are really sweet, right? And I thought it was very cute and it was very funny. But again, a 5-year-old that wants to be a watermelon can't be a watermelon, right? Whether she was trying to be funny or not, or she thought it was fun or not, ultimately she can't be a watermelon. And I think that's up to parents to tell their kids what they have to do, not up to the school system. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to come right back to the rest of your calls. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
All right, we start the speed round early tonight. We've got calls from New York, Pennsylvania, Oregon, Ohio, Indiana. I love when America chimes in on the important topics of the day. Let's go to Paul, Reading, Pennsylvania, WEEU. Go right ahead, Paul. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hi, Rick. In order to be very speedy, you are a conservative who moderates. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Explain.
Okay, well, you are conservative in the sense that you want to hold on to the values that are necessary and not go way too far out into the liberal way. But you moderate the presentation of the facts through your guests and your moderate voice, actually, and rationality. I'm not trying to puff you up or anything, but you are different than any other talk show host I've ever listened to. And I think that's because you do things in a moderate way, sticking to the conservative side, but not going to the extremes and being moderate in what you do. Does that make sense now?
It does, and I thank you for the compliment. I take it as a compliment. And don't worry about puffing me up. My ego can't get any bigger. Go right ahead.
Stop telling better jokes than I do. I'm the caller here. Anyway, I've come up, by the grace of God, with several ideas to reduce gun violence, and I'll try to get 2 or 3 of them in. And I believe these have never been put together, at least not that I'm aware of. One is that the issue should be gun safety, not gun violence. In other words, we want people to be able to have guns as long as they're legally able to. If they've done a crime with a gun or even without a gun and they're a felon, they shouldn't have a gun. If they've been shown to be psychotic, they shouldn't have a gun, at least until they're... So everybody that's not in those conditions they should have a gun if they want one. Secondarily, there should be a voluntary First Amendment change across our country. Just as when an idiot runs out on a sports field, the cameras automatically turn away. When someone commits a gun crime, kills somebody, there should be very little put into the newspaper, not the picture of the person at all, maybe not even the name.
So you're saying like the media, and I agree with you. I think that legally owned guns is where it's at. It's our Second Amendment right. We need to hold on to that. We need to explain it, I guess, so people understand the Constitution and the importance of that. And the media does take this and they go way left with it. And it's a shame, but that's what I'm here for. That's what so many of my colleagues are here for. That's what you're here for. We need to educate everybody that we can on these issues so that we don't get duped. Paul, I thank you. I wish we could get to the rest of your points, but I have to move on because we're going to hit a break and I don't want to cut anybody off. But we're going to get to the rest of your calls straight ahead with the speed round. Paul, very kind. You're a gentleman and a scholar. Coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
All right, we go to David, White Valley, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Go right ahead very quickly.
Hey, really nice to talk to you, Rich, first time.
Thank you, David.
My thing is, with listening to the local radio lately, KDKA, Pittsburgh, nobody wants to go downtown anymore. And that was a big conversation for the last 2 days on the radio station down there. And
why? What's going on downtown?
Oh, violence and restaurants closing because of all the violence downtown. Homeless people hanging out everywhere, and everyone's saying it's turning into the new Portland or those places in Seattle.
You're right. There is so much unchecked crime because there's been an overturn of law and order through what I call pro-crime progressive prosecutors that don't prosecute anything. And all they do is enhance the crime. And they say they do it in the name of social justice. But really, where's the justice for society? It's not happening. People are losing their quality of life. Property values are probably going to go down eventually. Businesses are closing because the Democrats, I wish, if you could find me a handful of Republicans that are pushing these policies, I'll criticize them too, but I just don't see it. And you're right, David. I appreciate the call because this is something we need to talk about. And I'm glad that you guys are talking about it on KDKA. Let's continue. Let's go to Sarah, Bedford, Indiana, super fast.
Hey, great show. I want to tell you, schools are definitely pushing the LGBT agenda. I know this. I went to middle school, private school in Brooklyn. I won't mention the name. When I was growing up, they had gay teachers. Teachers didn't talk about their sexuality. They were just good teachers who just happened to be gay. I happened to look on their webpage for Kicks and Giggles recently, and they have pictures of kids from the school wearing school T-shirts marching in a pride parade. Now, if that's not indoctrination, I don't know what is. You're right, Sarah. And it should be that way, right? And you also shouldn't talk about being straight if you're being fair, right? I'm not going to sit here and say, well, the reason you need to grow up and marry a woman is that's just not the conversation you're having. You're having the conversation of here's the curriculum, here's what I'm teaching you. And that's why it's important to be on a school board so you can make sure that you have a say and a vote on what happens with curriculum. Great call, Sarah. I appreciate it. Let us go to Michael in Pendleton, Oregon. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hey, Rich. I'll try to call in earlier next time. I'm sorry about that. Quick point. Do you think any of these charges against President Trump have a chance of sticking?
So I don't think they're eventually going to stick, but I think they're going to do the damage that they're hoping that they're going to do right now. And that's why it's important for us to know the facts and to stay up to speed on these things, because they're prostituting the justice system to go after El Trompito, and really they're going after you and me and the rule of law. Folks, that's it for me. They're kicking me out. The music means we got to go. Linda, I'm sorry. I'll get to you tomorrow if you can. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless. I am Rich Valdez, and I'll see you tomorrow.